Hey, everybody. Hey. Welcome, guys. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, of course. Just want to start off, when you were founded, and just like, the short founding sort of story, why you started Ramp and Intercom. Eric, you want to go first?
Yeah, for sure. I think we started 1,927 days ago, so 2019 is when we kicked off. And I had sold my last company to Capital One, and we saw credit card companies were very good and thought a lot about how do you get customers to spend more money, earn more points, that kind of a thing. It turned out, if you talk to customers, ask them, do you want points, cash back, something different? If you really listen, they'd say, I actually just want more in my bank account. And the best way to do that is not to get 1% back on something, but not spend that $100 in the first place on something you didn't need. And so we got very obsessed with this idea of what if there was a card in software that was expressly designed with the intent of helping people spend less money and spend less time. That was the initial idea for Ramp. Today we serve over 25,000 businesses, process tens of billions of dollars per year in purchases, and help the average company reduce their expense, the card expenses by about 5% per year. So that's a short version. We'll go a lot deeper.
Great. Intercom?
Yeah, we started in 2011, so we're older. We've gone through a couple of generations, but fundamentally we've always been focused on helping businesses connect with customers online. We first built this messenger, which was a fun, easy, simple way for customers to connect with businesses and vice versa. And these days we're very deeply, intensely focused on using those conversational technologies to help businesses serve their customers at great scale using these modern AI technologies. That's our whole thing, our whole big focus.
And you guys both founded different times, different areas, but I think you're both interesting case studies in grappling with the AI wave coming, in totally different cases. So I want to start with Intercom, where it feels like very existential. I mean, you sort of come back to the company, you dedicate it towards AI. I think you're in this customer support role, where I think there is a lot of enthusiasm as a use case in having sort of chatbots deal with customer support. Talk a little bit about why you went all in on the AI message.
I guess it's pretty simple. AI is certainly going to do all work. It's going to do all blue-collar work and white-collar work. My favorite blue-collar example is the toilet cleaning robot. I don't know if you've seen that video where it traverses a full building floor by floor through the elevator, goes into a bathroom, cleans the sink and the mirror and the toilet, and it does all toilet cleaning in a building. It's a ridiculous example and a really profound example. And we're going to see that in every single blue-collar job. And every single white-collar job also is going to be done by AI. Every single type, yours and mine. But it's going to start with the types of white-collar work that needs the least amount of intelligence, and that's customer service. And so customer service is certainly about to get completely upended by AI. And so there'll be companies that fight that, or companies that be part of that change. We're trying to be part of that change.
What percentage of your work is done by AI right now, or how many humans do you have doing customer support versus?
We have maybe 150 humans or a little less. But the remarkable thing is that historically you'd have to grow your customer service team as you grow your customer base. And yet with our AI product doing a bunch of the customer service work, we've not grown that team in 2 years. And that's where it'll start. That's where I get to talk about AI replacing humans and not feel like a terrible person, because actually what it's going to do is it's going to do all of the work that's not yet existing, give or take. It's going to grow the market. And so all of the future growth in customer service will be AI.
And Eric, for Ramp, I can envision all these ways. So much of AI is like a data problem when you're trying to get your arms around companies' data. Sort of near term and then over the long term, how do you see what's happening with foundation models impacting your business?
Two things. First, people know us as a fintech company. We're plenty good at moving money. We do a lot of it. Internally, we think of ourselves as a workflow and productivity company. The advantage of Ramp is not just, hey, you can use a card and buy what you need. It's that we pull the data from the merchant directly. We pull the data from your email account. We connect to your ERP and your HRIS, so we know who reports to whom. We know how in the past you've coded things, to how tens of thousands of other companies code their transactions and can translate effectively unstructured data, whether that's an image of a receipt, what comes through a card network, an invoice, and translate it correctly to certainly more quickly, but also for the vast majority of our customers, more accurately code transactions, automate books. And so when I think about today, it's not possible to use Ramp without using AI in some way, from the receipt matching to transaction coding, to even suggested memos and categories is the most common way that people are entering. You don't need to write out the full memo. Ramp is able to functionally to better predict what you're going to write and save time. And so for us, it's very natural and fits with our North Star. If we're measuring ourselves by how much time we help you save, these are the kinds of products you're going to want to build. And so it's part of what makes us an odd duck. We're not just like a card company, really more of a workflow, and that's taken us further down the stack of financial and operational processes around it.
Do you think your customers are going to want to be able to talk to Ramp, or how much do you think the sort of, I don't know, ChatGPT interface is going to come for every sort of enterprise product, including your own?
I've never met a single customer that says, I just really wish I could talk to my bank account or I could talk to my credit card and know what it would say. What I would say, though, I think is very real is, in the same way people enjoy autocomplete and can get text done a lot faster, I think people want that for their transactions. I don't think it's anyone's dream to do lots of expense reports. People like the receipt to be automatically generated and coded. To even, when I think of a lot of business level tools, a lot of what B2B software is doing is building integrations into other interfaces and is taking action not just in the tool itself, but outside of it. And I think over time, accountants are going to be able to do diff analysis on what changed between accounting periods. I think procurement teams are going to have procurement agents that can understand what you paid in the past, what others in the market paid, and negotiation done on your behalf. And I think it's going to extend the bounds of what certain sets of software do for you. So there's a lot of external cases and a lot of internal cases for how it's changed the way we operate as well.
But no language interface, you don't think?
It's funny. So we put something out about a month ago that was, I think, caught a good amount of traction organically, where we applied OpenAI's GPT-4o model, and effectively you can give it control. There's about 1,000 companies that use it today in our beta group. That you can say, hey, issue a card for that you can only buy coffee with for $50. And then the model can functionally see what's on your screen, parse through the website, and take actions on your behalf and do things. And so I do think there are these agentic use cases where you're going to want to see and monitor, and then maybe one day once you understand the behavior, just let it loose and go. I think that makes sense. I think in our use case of chatting back and forth, I don't think that's like the right form factor. And I think there's a lot of other, beyond the agentic use cases, a lot of zero-touch use cases where you're not prompting Ramp and saying, hey, I just bought another thing. Can you tag this transaction? It's just done. And you can check it and you're reviewing it versus prompting. And so I think thinking through those user experiences is what we're trying to parse.
So at Intercom, do you think the models are smart enough for what you need today? Like, if you just use OpenAI out of the box, do you have a smart enough customer support agent to replace a human?
I think smart needs to be defined. And I think that these models clearly have a lot of raw intelligence. And the way people are making them do magic beyond what ChatGPT can do is when they engineer structure around them to help them to not just have raw intelligence, but to have practically useful intelligence. So when we launched our AI agent that talks to customers and does customer support, I think it was resolving like 25% of the tickets it would get engaged with. So that was kind of the out-of-the-box resolution rate, we call it. Even though we had already built a lot around it to help it figure out how to understand a question, disambiguate, look at knowledge-based sources, et cetera. We're now at about 48%, and we've gone from high 20s to 48 in 12 months. And
if you're in the 52, it gets handed off to a human, or what happens if
it gets handed off to a human.
Yeah.
And some of that change came by way of us moving from GPT 3.5 to 4, but most of it actually came from our own engineering. And by way of example, as an opportunity to badmouth one of our competitors, the big incumbent in our space is Zendesk. Brilliant business, outstanding. If we ever achieve half of what they achieved, we'd be very happy. I say that so I can now say something negative. Their bot now has a resolution rate that we had about 12 months ago. So they have a more out-of-the-box experience. And so I don't know if I'm really answering your question, but what I'm trying to say is that the raw intelligence in the models is there, but the actual value, if you actually want to own any value and be more than just a wrapper, you have to build a lot of structure around it. And that's where the most interesting companies will get built.
In the context window, or where are you influencing?
Many different ways. I mean, a lot of it's like smart prompt engineering, but other parts of it is applying your own machine learning. Like, for example, we use RAG to understand the question, try and understand the question that's being asked, try and understand where there's relevant information to answer that question, pass that information to the models, etc. All that said, this raw intelligence will increasingly expand with the newer models, I'm imagining. And so a lot of this orchestration that Intercom and others build around the edges will start to become obsolete. You can only imagine that GPT-5 and 6 will just do a lot of the stuff that Intercom's building today.
Does that replace you then?
Over a long period of time, AI replaces me, you, him, and our products.
How do you build a moat if that's true? Or you're running full speed until we all fall off a cliff.
No. A moat is just about a moment in time. Today, we have a superior AI agent product by far. And we only need to earn dollars today. We just need to convince customers that today we're superior. If we stop, we'll be inferior in the future. And at some point in the future, like I said, Intercom, maybe Ramp, I don't know. Ramp's a brilliant product, I don't know, but I'll speak for us. Intercom, maybe Ramp. But you, me, and him will be obsolete. But that's tomorrow's problem.
Right.
I
always think of businesses, aren't the values based on their long-term earnings?
Well, but
the
best businesses adapt and change. They reinvent themselves like Intercom has. We were going to die if we just continued to sell seats for humans to use. And so we're now killing our old business. But if you went back to someone operating a loom to create textiles back in the day, and you said, in 2 decades, or 50 years, or 100 years, your job will not exist, I don't think you could get them to care.
Eric, what's your view here? You're an optimist, but also a real. You'll say a nice thing.
This is not a pessimist. All I'm saying is that things change. Times change.
It is an interesting question. I know we know a lot of folks working on AI engineers, which is a hard problem. Some people joke, is that really this is a really hard job? Is that the first job that's going to be automated? Maybe it's super digital, but I do think that look, there were people 30 years ago who primarily were engaged in the collection of receipts and tagging of transactions, and I think the number of bookkeepers is falling dramatically, but the number of financial advisors has gone up, and so I think the nature of jobs change. I think that I very much fully agree with, and I also think too, for anyone who's building in software. Look, I'll put it this way, a lot of moats for businesses were, it was really hard to build lots of integrations. It was really hard to build features, and this app had this feature and this one didn't. And your data lockup was a very important thing, and I think very strange things start to happen when suddenly you can pull out all of your data that's locked in some horrible ERP from 1983. And suddenly all the other ones can move. Suddenly, the advantage that you're 3 months ahead goes down to your 24 hours ahead. I do think that's going to happen, and I think that the classic things that differentiate businesses over time, data moats, network effects, context around the product, as well as just interoperability of software tends to be very, very useful. I also think, I think what was very prescient, and I think great about your movement, about what you did, is in a world where AI can functionally perform actions and drive business outcomes, metering and capturing value as a portion of that directly, I think is a really interesting concept, and I think logically it makes a lot of sense. So I agree with that. Do I think it's sit back and hang out and it's all done? I don't buy that. I think that people evolve. I think, and look, I think part of what makes people deeply human is the ability to create, to see, to drive excitement, action, and use systems. I think there's new innovations constantly.
Just one of the things, do you have consumption-based pricing now?
In a sense, yeah.
You were sort of referencing, you resolve a ticket and you get paid based on ticket resolution.
Right. We don't get paid if we don't. Yeah.
So for us, definitely, right? The primary way that, we're primarily a fintech business. We have a software component, but most of our business is how much do people want to use our cards, our bill payments, all that. And so part of the reason why we're so excited about this is we believe if we save you more time with more payment, with every payment, if we help you get the same thing for less, you'll put more of your business through Ramp, and that's how we monetize. So, yes.
Right. Yeah. How much are you shopping for models based on price right now? I think it's easy to talk like, oh yeah, who's the smartest? But like, I mean, running these models is super expensive, right? Or what's your experience in terms of how profitably you can deliver sort of a chatbot from OpenAI or anybody else?
I mean, our view is that over time, the price is going to go to zero-ish, And so we care about just the long-term thing. When we launched Finn, our AI agent, we charged 99 cents per resolution, even though it was costing us $1.20, because we just knew it's going to get cheaper. And now I think it costs us, I'm probably not allowed to say how much it costs.
You're the boss.
I know. Well, I think it costs us 20-something cents. I'm not sure. So, you can actually
How much do you think it costs a human per resolution?
Anywhere between $25 or more commonly $15 per resolution, or if you outsource it, you can get it done for like dollars. You cannot get it done for 99 cents. Yeah. Anyway, my point being that over the long period of time, it just gets super cheap. And so what's more important now as this is developing is that you have the most effective product.
Yeah.
Because everyone's building these things, of course. And so we look at all the models. We're friends at all the model companies. We admire all of what they do. And today still, at least for our specific use case and the way we've built our thing, GPT-4 is best. But I mean, Anthropic's models are outstanding. And maybe if we built our thing from scratch, it would perform a little better on Anthropic. But we investigate that all the time.
Eric, how do you think about hallucinations? I mean, you're sort of dealing with money. It's a financial company. I imagine the credit card where it's like only spend on coffee sounds great. What happens if it's wrong? Or like, how do you deal with the risk in such a sensitive business that AI can be fallible?
Yeah. It's a super good question, and I actually think it's about just delineating what are the use cases, and do you have other tests in order to catch potential hallucinations. So what I'd say is, in terms of credit card approvals, in terms of the rails and the core infrastructure, like you really are not going to find it. But in terms of receipt matching and trying to understand the efficacy of it, you can get a model functionally to say of what's the level of conviction, and you can run, to the point about running multiple models, multiple forms of analysis to effectively catch it. And so we tend to employ those techniques. What I say is part of the reason why the agentic use case is in labs is like, if you're having a thing drive for you, you want to have it in very limited use cases. You want to watch it, and you can see the actions before letting it be on autopilot. And so in many ways, I think we're trying to use Waymo's development kind of practice over time to sort of think about how we're putting out self-driving money into our product, but we want to have the ability for you to ride Copilot and shotgun. And so I think that's why
your employees or the customer's employees who sort of ride Copilot?
It's functionally the customers as well. And so the actions can only be taken with your review if you're kind of taking this agentic action. And I think that's why the Copilot type models have, or UX framework has become so popular today, because I think that problem is real, and complete automation is tough. I will say though, it's very fun and for me sentimental to come to this building. About 10 years ago, Kareem and I started working on Paribus in one of the apartments upstairs. And functionally, that was an AI agent built a decade ago. It lived in your inbox. It scanned your inbox for receipts. It detected what you bought. It tracked the prices. And if you were eligible for a price drop, it wrote an email as to the store.
You don't need an app. Yeah, it does fit a lot of the themes I hadn't thought about.
And there's a lot of these cases where that was a really narrow use case, and actually full self-driving was fine. It totally worked. the losses were, there was functionally no risk. People would say, you know what, you're not owed that refund. Sorry. Okay, that's fine.
Right.
Life went on, and so there's lots of cases like that where I actually think this notion of hallucination is a big problem. If you really reason through it, not everything has large risks. Some things have functionally zero. It's kind of like if you ask a lawyer, is there risk? The answer is, of course. But it doesn't matter the question. But there are certain answers where, yes, there's risk, but the damages are nothing, or 10 cents. And so you want to think about where can you apply sometimes in this risk framework too.
How much has just improvements in image processing been key to the business?
Dramatic.
I imagine there's so many things I think with AI, like to me, the translation apps, we haven't talked about it all today, are one of the most amazing things that would have been impossible. And then it's like, oh my God, you can go to Japan and just talk to somebody easily. And I imagine just thinking about it for your business, image recognition has got to be really key in understanding receipts.
It was huge. I mean, and for us, I'll say a few years ago, our ability to detect Japanese yen and match the receipt correctly was mind-blowing to people. Now people just expect it. And I think it's taking place over multiple mediums. Like I think images is a very obvious one, but I think one of the use cases which has been among the more dramatic internal advantages is, for every one of our salespeople, we want to help them improve. And so we record, conversations through Gong, through Chorus, these types of things with every customer over time. I think the library is now over 100,000, calls that we've recorded. And we're using it in ways where, SDRs can ask their, an AI teammate, he doesn't exist, his name is Toby, he has the time to read 100 transcripts. And so if you want to ask, why do customers prefer us over competitor X, you can ask 100,000 customers and get the answer for, better sales copy, for product research, for all kinds of things. You can do that. We have an internal podcast where you can actually listen to it. And so the ability to go multimodal, not just for images and for text, but for audio and sound, these other mediums, I think is really fascinating, and I think is going to set off a wave of not just the ability to sell products, but to help companies just be more productive.
We had Scott Belsky on stage who was saying, in this very dynamic world, companies need to be ready to shift. And you really, you're coming back, you're sort of throwing it behind this, like just from the inside, like what lessons, you're still sort of fighting the fight, but what have been the lessons so far in doing that sort of like big pivot when you see a trend coming like this?
It's a good question. It's kind of easy to overdo the whole AI thing, AI everywhere. Dylan Field from Figma actually at the config conference that did yesterday, he had a t-shirt that said, now with AI. It's kind of like a joke, everyone's trying to put AI in everything. And so for me, I can be somewhat cynical sometimes with trendy things. Try and look through your cynicism a little bit. I spent months trying to figure out, is this all hype or is this worth, making big changes?
Well, now you're the one where everybody's losing their job.
Sure.
You're saying there was a time where you're the opposite.
Look at me now. Trust me, I didn't want to believe that was true. So I think, meeting the moment with authenticity and sharing with the company your misgivings and your concerns is very important. If you're thinking about it, they are too. I think, I'm really cynical of people like me showing up at a conference pretending like I know everything about AI. I didn't invent this stuff. And so kind of, a little bit of humility is really important too. I think with moments of great change, and this is certainly the greatest change I've ever seen in my career, and presumably the greatest change we'll any of us see, I think you need to be willing to rip up a lot of rules and a lot of dogma and kill a lot of sacred cows. And it necessitates great risk. This is an advantage that younger companies have over incumbents in that they have to risk it all. To be able to pivot and change. There's, Silicon Valley, San Francisco is just full of all these AI startups, but they're all 2- and 3-person companies. They have nothing to lose, and they're 23, and if it doesn't work out, they'll do another one, and if that doesn't work out, they'll do another one. In general, the AI energy is with these kids with nothing to lose. Big companies, the only way you'll not only thrive but survive is that you act like them. So you must be willing to bet the farm and get crazy and take risks and do all the things.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Eoghan, Eric, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
It was a lot of fun. It was great.
That was fun.
It was fun. Yeah.
Stand up.